So I'm on my YouTube page. I'm on my YouTube homepage, and I just see Pogan has uploaded a new video called Jordan Peterson Doesn't Understand Marxism. I've also made a video titled Jordan Peterson and his fan base do not understand Marxism. So Pogan, this guy, Pogan, I should probably let you all know who this is. New American Left. It's a guy named Pogan who used to be a debate channel, okay? And then he got owned at debates. He couldn't stand the test of time at debates, so he switched to a video essayist. And he's basically like a ripoff of Socialism Done Left. He's basically like a ripoff of SDL. He's basically that, like. And I sat through this hour 7 minutes conversation that he had with Vosh, which was so painful to fucking listen to, because in it they propagate their whole like worker co-ops are socialism bullshit, and it's just like it's the main frustrating thing about it is that they wholeheartedly espouse the belief that if the entire economy were made into worker co-ops, then that would end class society, which is just not how it works at all. Like, that's literally a misreading of Marxism. Like, a society where everyone is proletariat is still class society. You see what I'm saying? JP read the whole 70-page manifesto written for semi-illiterate lumpen proles. How could he not understand the... Yeah. He read the Communist Manifesto twice. How could he not know what he's talking about? So Pogan is basically like a failed YouTuber already, even though he does have 3K subs. And he has regularly challenged Infrared Haas to debates, but he wouldn't debate him unless he specifically affirmed the position that command economies are superior. He would only debate him on that singular, specific, enclosed definitional term on his own terms. So it's like this slimy tactic to like rope him into a debate that would just turn into one of those annoying Destiny-esque semantic fucking define socialism, stupid fucking waste of time debates like the Richard Wolff thing. Like, oh my god, I hate Destiny. Anyways, since he's too much of a pussy to debate Infrared, I'm just gonna check out this video and see what Pogan has in store for us, everyone.
A while back, Jordan Peterson, of all people, released a video entitled...
Wait, what the fuck was that intro? What the hell? That's so annoying, dude. That's the worst intro ever.
A while back, Jordan Peterson, of all people, released a video entitled What Marx Got Wrong, in which he discusses what he thinks the major tenets of Marxism are, and attempts to refute them. As with the Ben Shapiro video, and then the Vosh video, and then the Destiny video, this is just representative of a total misunderstanding of the theory, and for that reason, we're going to take a look at it today, give some quick responses to what he's saying in this video, and generally just sort of explain what Jordan Peterson's modus operandi is, and why he continuously misrepresents Marxism and things that don't align with his particular ideology. Now, I know before I start, there's going to be some Jordan Peterson fans that are going to be a little upset with this, so let me clarify. This is not to demean his character or suggest that he's not a good clinical psychologist, since that is his background. It's merely to suggest that on this specific...
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Everybody always says that. Every generic YouTuber says that when they're talking about Jordan Peterson. But the truth is, even his psychological ideology, that segment of his ideas... Even that, which is what he is like a expert in, it still remains connected to his cringe political project. But maybe I'll do more content on that on a later date. Maybe later today we can get into more Jordan Peterson ruthless critique, but
topic. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Let's get into the video.
One of the things that made Marx wrong was Marx believed that capital would flow into the hands of fewer and fewer people, and that the
yeah, that's literally what's been happening, dude.
dissociation between the rich and the poor would become more extreme as capitalism developed.
That's literally what's happening. Income inequality is like
Like so many things that Marx said, it's kind of true. It's kind of true in that the distribution of wealth, and in fact the distribution of anything that's produced, follows a Pareto pattern. And the Pareto pattern basically is that a small proportion of people end up with the bulk of the
yeah, 9 men own the same wealth as 50% of the world, yeah.
goods. And it isn't just money. It's anything that people produce, create.
Okay, Jordan, but how is the wealth produced? Who actually produces the value that the wealth is an expression of? It's the workers, dude. That's the other part of Marx's analysis
Creatively.
that you're conveniently leaving out in your naturalistic little scientific little Anglo project of naturalizing capitalism, dude.
Ends up in that distribution.
Okay, we're off to a good start so far. That's correct. All the empirical evidence supports that statement. He's not wrong.
Fuck Pogan. David G is back. What's up, dude? Fuck Pogan. I agree.
I'm getting like an intrinsic fear
Soygan. Copegan.
that what's about to follow is going to be a horrible mischaracterization of Marxism, but so far we're doing okay. This is not awful.
The reason that Marx was right was because he noted that as a feature of the capitalist system. The reason that he was wrong is that it's not a feature that's specific to a capitalist system. It's a feature that's general to all systems of creative production that are known.
Basically, what Peterson is suggesting here is that not only in capitalism, but all economic systems, there's a tendency for people...
There should be a TV show called Pogan's Heroes, where they stick Pogan and bread tubers in a work camp and Haas plays... Jesus Christ.
People who give value to the system, you know, create something of value, whether that's in terms of efficiency or creativity. There's a tendency for those people...
Dude, Pogan is just rambling right now. He's literally just like, what?
Peterson is suggesting here is that not only in capitalism, but all economic systems, there's a tendency for people who give value to the system, you know, create something of value, whether that's...
The workers!
in terms of efficiency or creativity, there's a tendency...
It's not in terms of efficiency or creativity. It's literally in terms of fucking labor value. That's like...
for those people to begin to become successful.
What is the point of this video? It's just Pogan jerking himself off.
As a sort of snowball effect and begin to amass more and more resources, disproportionately more resources than the rest of the population within the system. Of course, this goes against the entire concept of Marxist socialism, where that sort of distribution would not occur, because that would lead to the creation of an economic class. This is just a claim, right? There's no argument being provided quite yet for this being true.
It's such a nerdy way of critiquing Jordan Peterson's point. Did you see how I was able to just simply point out, like, wait, but you're missing this part? But Pogan is just, like, rambling and trying to sound intelligent and, like... in this stupid, long, drawn-out fucking video essay thing, like... You don't need to go through this rigmarole to critique Jordan Peterson, dude. Literally just say it plain and simple.
True in a hypothetical socialist system. So let's keep watching and see if he presents such an argument, but just to clarify for the viewers here, this is not true of socialism the way that Marx articulated it.
That isn't even what? Peterson was talking about capitalism, not socialism. What? I don't even think Pogan understands the video he's making fun of here.
And so it's like a natural law, and it's enough of a natural law
See, this is the dangerous thing, though, seriously, about Jordan Peterson, is that his fundamental political project is to claim that capitalism, a human system, a system that human beings constructed for ourselves, is just the natural way of the world. That's the problem with JP. At the end of the day, that's the essential problem with his politics. He just brushes it all off as a natural phenomenon, which politically, that's infantilizing and fucking crippling, because if it's just natural, then we can't do anything about it. That's his whole point. You see what I mean?
By the way, that the distribution of wealth can be modeled by physical models using the same equations that govern the distribution of gas molecules in a vacuum.
There is no such law, and if there is such a law, it doesn't apply to a socialist system. These economic laws are modeled off market economies.
Yeah, dude. He's not talking about socialist systems. He's talking about capitalism right now, Pogan. Pogan doesn't even understand the video he's critiquing. Like,
They're modeled off situations where there is, by the nature of the system, an unequal distribution of capital and resources because there are distinct economic classes, right? The models are designed to show how resources and capital flow between these economic classes, but when dealing with a hypothetical scenario in which these economic classes no longer exist, the model is obviously not going to be applicable unless it's adjusted for that system. Now, he's not doing any sort of adjustment here, so it seems to be a case of taking a capitalistic model and attempting to apply it to a socialist system as a way of saying, look, the socialist system is subject to the very same effects that we observe in a capitalistic system. But
that's not even what he was saying.
There's no argument being given for that being true.
So it's a fundamentally profound observation about the world, way the world lays itself out. And it's problematic because if resources accrue unfairly to a small minority of people, and there's a natural law-like element to that that has to be dealt with from a social perspective, because if the inequality becomes too extreme, then the whole system will destabilize. And so you can have an intelligent discussion about how to mitigate the effects of the transfer of creative production into the hands of a small number of people.
At this point, it would be prudent to ask Peterson.
Yeah, but do you see the problem, though, everybody, with Peterson? Is he's basically like a platonic idealist. He thinks that the world is something that lays itself out. He thinks that everything is something that manifests from some ideal predeterministic realm into material reality. But, like, what he seems to not comprehend about Marxists is that we don't think that way. We see the material reality that is in existence around us, and we realize the fact that all of these day-to-day life phenomena that are part of that material world that we live in influence the way that we think internally, not like the other way around, you know? Like, that's the other thing, is Peterson's idealism. But I don't even know if Pogan has the philosophical know-how to critique that part. What is he going to say?
And what the argument is for that distribution of wealth and resources not being regulated by a hypothetical socialist or communist society. Presumably, he doesn't believe that there is no situation, period, where that sort of resource dispersion could not be regulated, rather, right? Presumably, he understands that, hypothetically, at the very least, we could establish a society where those resources are regulated such that there doesn't become an immense imbalance. That's what he means when he says we can have an intelligent discussion about the topic.
No, that's
right?
not what he means. That's not what he means. What he means is that he's okay with a little bit of regulation. He's okay with a little bit of regulation, just so that you can get a little bit of wealth trickling down from the hands of the few at the top. Pogan, what you are saying is that you are the type of socialist who thinks that we can regulate our way out of that situation, which is obvious nonsense.
So I don't understand why it's not part of that intelligent discussion to suggest that there could be a society in which workers own the means of production, and the dispersal of resources is regulated in such a way that no one person or one group has an unequal possession of resources. But he thinks, for some strange reason that hopefully we'll get to later in this video, that such a society, a socialist society in particular, could not exist or would be doomed if it were to emerge. And
But he hasn't even brought up socialism yet. He hasn't even brought up a socialist society yet.
I'm failing to understand the argument for that. So
yeah, you are.
Let's see if we can see an argument from Peterson later in this clip.
Now, the other reason, however, having said that, the other reason that Marx was wrong, there's a number of them. One is that even though creative products end up in the hands of a small number of people, it's not the same people consistently across time. It's the same proportion of people. And that's not the same thing. You know, like, imagine that there's water.
Okay, but what about inheritance, though? Right? Like, that's that's obviously a component. And you have a family like the Waltons. Like, it's all the same families.
Going down a drain, and you say, well, look at the spiral. It's permanent. You think, well, the spiral's permanent, but the water molecules aren't. They're moving through it. And it's the same in some sense with the Pareto distribution, is that there's a 1%, and there's always a 1%, but it's not the same people. The stability of it differs from culture to culture, but there's a lot of movement in the upper 1%, a tremendous amount of movement. And one of the reasons for that movement is that things get large.
What do you mean there's a lot of movement? What are you talking about?
And then they get too large, and then they collapse.
Let's take a more precise look at exactly what Peterson is talking about here. He's talking about the Pareto distribution, named after the Italian civil engineer, economist, and sociologist Vilfredo Pareto. It's a power law probability distribution used in description of social quality control, scientific, geophysical, actuarial, and many other types of observable phenomena. Originally applied to describing the distribution of wealth in a society, fitting the trend that a large portion of wealth is held by a small fraction of the population. The Pareto principle, or 80-20 rule, states that 80% of outcomes are due to 20% of causes. It's important to understand that the Pareto distribution is merely a description of a capitalistic society and how it handles wealth. It's not making a prescription that we ought to follow the trend, right?
Yeah, but it's also not saying that this is just the natural set-in-stone way that life has to be forever, because obviously it wasn't before capitalism, you know? Like, that's the important point to point out if you understand what Jordan Peterson's actually fucking putting forward for a political project, which Pogan seems to be failing to reach. He's failing to reach the ruthless critique of all that exists. He's failing. He's falling flat on his face.
The trend is not a law. It can be negated or acted against. To suggest that because this is a description of society, we ought follow that description or ought implement policies that are befitting the Pareto principle is to commit the naturalistic fallacy. That is, deriving an ought statement from an is statement, or a prescription from a description. We can more aptly sum it up in this.
He's nerdifying it when it's not that, like... it's not that, like... complicated, really, in that sense. You don't have to go into an is, ought, whatever.
Way. The Pareto principle is describing a current phenomena. It is not saying that that phenomenon has to continue into the future or can't be acted against. It's merely
yes, Pogan, we know.
A description of something that is occurring at the present moment, given the material conditions of society. To suggest that it must continue in the future and we must act in accordance with that principle is to misunderstand the Pareto principle at its core.
And so, in 2008, when the politician said...
He feels really important. I can tell he felt like that was really a digger, didn't he? Jordan Peterson is at a handicap because he never read anything aside from the communist... Yeah. And Pogan... Pogan is jumping through all these debate hoops, like...
too big to fail. They got something truly backwards, as far as I can tell. And that was... It was a reverse. The statement was reversed. It should have been so big it had to fail.
So true, Dr. Peterson.
That's literally the entire video. His one argument against Marxism in this video is invoking the Pareto principle. And as we've already shown, to say that the Pareto principle is something we should act in accordance with, or that it will necessarily continue into the future the way he's talking about, is the is-ought fallacy. The Pareto principle, once again, is merely describing a current phenomenon in capitalist societies. It's not the be-all, end-all of how resource distribution is handled in any society that's industrialized or has commodified resources.
Those of us who fear Marxism argue against it. It seems to me that we very frequently say things about how Marxism goes wrong. And these things, I would say them very somewhat differently than most people, but by and large, there's some direct connection between the attempt to create a Marxist utopia and...
Nobody's trying to create a Marxist utopia, Brett Weinstein. That's not...
starvation, authoritarianism.
When Brett Weinstein says there's a direct connection...
Oh my god, it's so pathetic. It's literally so pathetic.
...between Marxism as a theory and these sorts of outcomes like starvation, authoritarianism, etc., it's to suggest that a necessary entailment of Marxist theory is starvation, authoritarianism, etc. Now,
you said the same. You basically made the same argument in your tanky video, Pogan. You basically made the same fucking argument in that video. I'm not gonna watch it, but like, we don't have time. I don't have enough time to waste on Pogan, first of all. But like, he basically played into the same anti-communist propaganda in his tanky video.
It's going to be an almost impossible task to produce some sort of deductive argument for why Marxism necessarily leads to these outcomes, because the implication is that every single time Marxism as a theory or socialism as an ideology is implemented, those will be the outcomes. Not only do we have counterexamples of socialism and centrally planned economies not leading to those outcomes, to suggest that there is a direct entailment suggests that, more importantly, that it is causal. That is to say, socialism and Marxism cause those things rather than merely being correlated with them. The correlation argument would be substantially easier for Weinstein.
Yeah, and you can go into causation and correlation and all this nerd stuff, but like, the point is, Weinstein and Peterson and all these idealist liberal motherfuckers think that the world is the way it is because we put ideas into action. So they think that when you put Marxist theory into practice, it leads to authoritarianism and dictatorship and starvation. But a simple way of debunking that is you can just say, that's not how the fucking world works. You don't put an ideology into action. You do actions based in part on your own ideological beliefs, but also based on a whole host of other factors that then influence your ideological beliefs in turn. So it's like it's not like Marxism exists in an ideal realm and we can cling on to this essence of Marxism as like the root of all evil, because there's no ideal realm where that happens. Marxism, and Marx himself did not fucking define communism along these terms. He said that communism is the real movement that sublates the present state of things. It's not a dogma
to defend, but he's making a considerably strong...
Are we going to Zizek? Probably not tonight, Bree. I don't think so.
...claim. He's saying it's causal. And of course, there's going to be no argument for that from Weinstein or Peterson, nor would any political scholar or academic try to insinuate that the relationship between Marxism and those sorts of outcomes is somehow causal. There's no relationship like that with any political ideology. There are only strong or weak correlations.
And I think I know what this is, and actually it goes back to the question of group selection, which is...
No, but there's no correlation between the theory and the practice that you can say, oh, look what happened here. Like, you would have to actually do an in-depth, close analysis of each and every singular case, each and every discrete case of the problems with authoritarianism, quote unquote, and the famines that did happen in the USSR and all of that, to actually see why it happened in the real, like, circumstances in which it happened. You can't just say, oh, it's correlated to Marxist theory that this happened. Lazily.
Because these systems are game theoretically unstable, because they punish those who do more and reward those who do less.
So just to be clear, Brett Weinstein is making the claim that Marxist systems reward those who do less and punish those who do more. Now, I don't need to tell you that this is obviously bunk. One of the central adages of Marxism is to each according to their ability, to each according to their need, which would...
Also, capitalism is a fake meritocracy. Doing more doesn't mean you get higher on the ladder.
Be better phrased as something like, to each according to their contribution, to each according to their need. The idea there, of course, being that if you are an able-bodied worker and you're failing to contribute to society, obviously the reward you receive, right, is going to be less significant than the reward somebody would receive who's a hard worker, who is engaged in considerably more labor than you are, etc. So it's unclear what Brett Weinstein is trying to say here exactly, but it seems to be a total misrepresentation of Marxist ideology.
In order to get people who...
Well, no, it's not, though. It's literally just an expression of his own capitalist ideology. I have better counter-arguments for all these intellectual dark web doofuses than Pogan. Do we agree?
are harmed by that. That is to say, those who tend to contribute more and are therefore punished by such a system, to adhere to it, you have to threaten them.
Why would you necessarily have to threaten people in order to get them to engage in labor? There are plenty of ways to incentivize labor in a hypothetical socialist system. Many of those proposals would not involve use of force or violence. And let's just talk about coercion generally for a second, because conservatives and critics of Marxism love to throw out the idea that Marxism would be coercive. People would be coerced into engaging in labor. I don't know if you've realized this or not, right? But capitalism as an economic system is one of the most coercive economic systems mankind has ever utilized. People are coerced into wage labor under threat of basically becoming homeless or starving to death, right? In countries like the United States, the welfare programs that do exist are wholly inefficient, incapable of providing for the populace. So if you fail to work consistently, if you just decide not to work, you will absolutely be coerced into labor in much the same capacity that you're trying to say Marxism would coerce you into labor. So
yes, Pogan, it's the easiest argument to make in the world. It's literally just the fact that capitalism basically holds a gun to your head, and the gun is the lowering of your living standards, and then tells you to work. If you don't work, then we will lower your living standards. It's the same. It's so simple to make that point. We all know that.
It's pretty ironic that the same critique that is thrown around all throughout the internet regarding coercion and Marxism, coercing people into labor, is not only applicable to capitalism, it's arguably more pointed with respect to capitalism.
Game theorists are interested in the repeatability of interactions.
I feel like it's really easy to be like just like a generic socialist leftist today. Like, everyone who isn't some kind of quote unquote socialist or like soc dem or market socialist or whatever is basically just like some kind of like, but also isn't a right winger, is basically just some kind of like Christian liberal. Like, it's just so easy. Like, everyone is a socialist nowadays. It's so easy.
And some forms of interactions degenerate with time. Those aren't sustainable. They're not good games. As you play them, you get bored by them or hurt by them. You don't want to keep playing. Some games maintain themselves. And I would say we have an ethic that teaches us when we're playing a sustainable.
Watch this video on the Soviet Union. I don't want to spend that much time watching Pogan tonight.
Game. I think that's the voice of conscience. That's related to the points I made earlier.
So just to clarify, the argument now is that Marxism is bad because I have an intuition that it is bad, and other people may share that intuition. Therefore, our intuition is reflective of some game theoretic consideration regarding the stability of the system. Right? I understand Jordan Peterson sounds smart, like he obviously uses.
I watched Haas cover it. It does suck. It's literally just like he appeals to the sentiments that were created by the American elite, basically. Like that's all. That's all it is.
There's a lot of, smart sounding language, but when you break down exactly what he's saying and try to like condense his ideas, it just comes off as pretentious at best, totally incomprehensible at worst, right? What the fuck does it even mean to say you have an intuition about a game theoretic consideration concerning the stability of a Marxist system? Further, if you want to make the claim that it's empirically supported that Marxist states have collapsed throughout history...
What the hell is this video footage even supposed to be? This video looks like shit.
Show me the evidence, right? That Marxist states have collapsed in virtue of an internal contradiction or inconsistency in Marxist theory, rather than all sorts of things like bureaucratic mismanagement, external pressures from other countries and the capitalist hegemony, etc. I'd like to see the evidence for that.
Your Marxism, as it's instantiated, is actually an unplayable game, and you gave a reason, is that you can't set up a system that punishes people that are productive and rewards people who aren't.
Really, that's funny because you've described the current system. Under capitalism, the people who are productive, laborers, are rewarded to a considerably less significant degree than the people who are unproductive, that being the bourgeois, that being the people who own private property and employ people as wage laborers. That's exactly consistent with the sort of system you think is internally contradictory and will implode, right? Marxism isn't about that at all. Marxism suggests that people will be rewarded based on their contribution to broader society as well as their need. What you have in mind is the exact sort of situation where a wealthy aristocratic bourgeois class does virtually nothing productive in terms of labor, but takes from the productive class much of their labor value, much of their labor itself.
Even if some of the people are only miming productivity and they're actually power-hungry tyrants, you can't clump them in with the competent people and punish all of them.
Yep. Now, and if you try, in order to stabilize it, in order to get those who are being punished for contributing not to defect, you have to threaten them so that authoritarianism follows quickly on the heels, as does in many cases the failure of the system to deliver even basic well-being.
Not only
they're basically making this up. They're just pulling all of this bullshit out of their asses. Like they're just making all of these points up out of thin air. Like it's just so I forgot how much the intellectual dark web sucks because they're so irrelevant now. Like I forgot how ass their whole project is. Like it's just so cringe.
Have I explained several times?
It's literally just petty bourgeois whinging the whole time.
Why it's not the case that socialist systems or Marxist systems necessarily lead to the sort of authoritarianism.
IDW is fighting themselves on Twitter. Yeah. They're not really a group anymore. Dave Rubin became too stupid for any of them to interact with. So it's kind of a dead brand.
These two have in mind. We have real-world examples of socialist systems existing in a decentralized way, absent the sort of authoritarian power structure that these two are referring to. The biggest example that comes to mind are the Zapatistas. For all intents and purposes, the Zapatistas are a libertarian socialist society, and they don't, by any means, have the sort of authoritarian command structure that these two seem to suggest would be required for any sort of Marxist or socialist society. So
these are all easy points, Pogan. These are all very easy points to say.
I guess real-world examples don't count when you and...
I could have made this video in a way much more interesting fashion and more philosophically rich fashion than Pogan.
Your buddy are talking about random mathematical and philosophical considerations with no political import over a cup of coffee, right?
Not only does it devolve into something authoritarian and ineffective at feeding people, but it also wouldn't be desirable even if it didn't. It would be horrifying.
Yes, what an intellectual powerhouse. It's
What
truly
is going on here? Just a whole bunch of cringe. We got Pogan on the IDW. Cringe on cringe. We're feasting upon a cringe pile at the moment, but it's almost over.
breathtaking when the argument just reduces to, I think it would be horrifying because of completely ahistorical, unsound reasoning, therefore Marxism bad. What an outstanding showing from Brett Weinstein and Peterson here.
Yes, Pogan, you did a great job. God damn it. Those are the types of people who are popular on YouTube. It's either Pogan type shit or Jordan Peterson type shit. But infrared is rising, and I do sincerely think that tankies are gonna be the next big YouTube click. I think it's gonna be tankies. React Andy BreadTube is going down the gutter. I don't know, dude. Like, Vosh is still big. Vosh is still really fucking popular. And Destiny is still really fucking popular. Like, their analytics are all going down. Really? Really? Let's try to find that. That would be exciting. Whoops. That would be exciting to see, I said. BreadTube losing followers. Biden is losing the internet? Yeah, I can't find that. Wait. Vosh Social Blade. Vosh's YouTube stats. I don't know, dude. It all looks like it's going up. Wait, total subscribers weekly isn't. Damn, that dropped. It literally went. He was at 17K weekly subs. And now he's at 0. 17K to 0. Holy shit. Really? Vosh makes... What the fuck? Vosh makes 3,500K a year? What? Wait. 22K to... I mean, maybe you're right, David. Maybe you're correct. Because his subs are like... Just... Yeah, BreadTube is going to end up like Skeptic YouTube. And then I think it's going to be tankies. I don't know, though. That's my prediction. I think it's going to be tankies. Haas is leading the charge. Really? Vosh made another Jimmy Dore video? Really, dude? Vosh is so lame. Get over it. Get over Jimmy Dore. Just get over it. Jimmy Dore.